Hi, welcome back to the podcast. This is part 2 of Mark's story. In part 1, which was the previous episode, if you haven't listened to that, go back and listen to it. He spoke about his time in the army and his decision to leave and why. In this episode, we're going to talk to Mark about what happened after he left the military and how his life changed. It's quite an interesting story. He's been to places I'd heard of them, but I didn't realise they were quite so bad. But it's a story that's quite resonant with a lot of people. It affected me while we were recording it. When we got onto the aspects of mental health, it's helped me kind of push my journey as well. Well, anyway, I hope you enjoy it. Have a listen to it, and again, please share it on all your social medias. Leave a comment on whatever platform you hear it on. Thanks very much. If you like this podcast or the previous ones, please consider buying me a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/Frankie'sPod. It just goes to help fund the software and the hosting. Hi, and welcome back to this episode. This is part 2 of Mark's story. In part 1, he went over his time in the army, from growing up in the military, joining the army, and then leaving. In this part, we're going to talk to Mark about what he did after his years of service and what he's got planned for the future. Hi, Mark. Welcome back.
Thank you. No 4 questions this time, right?
No. This is all you. So. In part 1, we went over everything, your time in the army and that. So what happened afterwards?
Yeah, I just want to clear, I think I ended up with that. I like the sound of my voice. That's why I wanted to do a 2-parter. I just want to clear that up. I definitely don't like the sound of my own voice. But the reason, I think the reason why I asked if I could come and do the podcast and to do it in 2 parts is because inevitably, once you've been out for as long as what I have, if you ever meet up with people, they ask like, "Oh, what you've been up to, what you're doing." So I thought, I wonder if that could make an episode, because it has been a long old time. I can't do the maths in the head. If I could do the maths in the head, I wouldn't have been in the artillery. So I think it's the better half of 30 years.
Well, you left in 1997.
You're going to do the maths.
No, I don't do maths either. Somebody put it in the comments below.
I'm going to take my shoes off. I've been out a long time.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I don't go by years, I go by lack of hair.
So it is.
The more receding.
We've been out ages.
Yeah.
I've been out longer than you. So yeah, I thought I could contribute to your podcast by saying that, because it's slightly different what I've been up to. And also, if I ever get round to going to any of the reunions, hundreds of people say, "What are you up to?" I'm like, "Listen to Frankie's podcast. I don't have to really good."
Just carry it with you.
Yeah, just listen to that and come back. Yeah, come back to me when you're done.
I'll be asking questions.
And it might be something worth listening to, because it is a little bit unique. But yeah, left in 1997, did a bodyguards course, which was about as much use as an Astro and a motorbike. Ended up doing corporate security. Went back to college at night school to learn how to use a computer. And that led me into office work, traditional office work down in London. I was working in market research. It was for around about 9 years.
That's a big jump from wanting to be a close protection to market research. Yeah. How did that happen?
Because I had no choices.
Right.
The things that what I thought was going to happen versus the reality is two different things. There was a point where I was like, actually, there isn't any close protection work realistically, and ended up doing corporate security in a merchant bank in Canary Wharf, which was it was good money, shift work, corporate security, just a little bit more than normal security.
So what did that entail? Was that just standing in the bank looking hard?
Yeah. And then there's a CCTV control room and patrol room. And in the merchant bank as well, so in Canary Wharf. So it was all right, but I knew all the while I was there, this is not what I want to be doing. Yeah. But a nice bunch of lads who work there. So yeah, I went back to college and learned this stuff, like computers, I even started doing a little bit of web design back then. We're talking a long time ago, aren't we?
Yeah.
And that led me into doing some work at a market research agency. The short version is there's two types of research, quantitative and qualitative research. I was working with a team who were working for Nokia back when they had mobile phones, and it was on their global brand tracking survey. So data, information, Excel spreadsheets, and all that sort of stuff, putting them into charts of how many people have got this phone. So it was all right. It's kind of interesting stuff. But I was lucky. I did struggle when I first got out. I really did. So it's this adjustment. That's mostly what I struggled with, adjustment, and then PTSD. To this day, that was also a thing that sort of made life difficult for me. But I was really lucky. On reflection, the office that I worked for was a really cool office. It was dressed down, wasn't suited and booted. They had a really cool like CEO. It was really quite a sociable company or two. Um, so yeah, so it was okay. But in all that time, I think it was around about 9 years. Around about 9 years, I ballooned. I had the same leg problem as you. I had compartment syndrome when I went to have the surgery. They said just step on these scales. We need to weigh you for your anaesthetic, and she wrote 25 down,
Fucking hell.
and I was like, "What's that number?" And she went, "That's your weight in stone."
Wow.
Yeah.
It just creeps on you.
I didn't look it, and I did.
But it just creeps. You don't
Yeah,
realise. I mean, I'm no little lad, and I'm diabetic, so I get weighed a lot
yeah,
by the nasty nurse in the hospital, and she tells me off now and again.
yeah.
I'm not going to say it, but no, no, I'm not any of them. Not
Yeah. That's all right then.
I've just whispered.
Just
Mike,
mouthed it
I think the
over.
mic picked it up anyway. So yeah, but I'm losing weight. I don't do fizz or all like that,
Yeah,
but it creeps. Before you know it, you're
yeah. I was drinking a lot, but not like uncontrollably. I think they call it alcohol reliant. Is that what they call it?
a,
I
fun, a,
was a
fun,
binge drinker
a
as well.
functional alcoholic.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, when they wrote 25 down, I was like, oh, I need to do something about this. And so I just started doing a bit of fizz and went on a diet, and I was doing all right. Because that was as a result of the surgery, and part of the
Yeah,
recovery process was ended up in the company football team and stuff. So I was all right. So yeah, there was a long old time doing that. Met my wife, who is awesome, by the way. Um, we moved up to the northeast, took big pay cuts to come up to the northeast. And we got married. I ended up going back down south to work in that same company, like commuting. I'd go down there 4 days a week and come back. So, but all the while in the back of my head, it was like, wow, man, and all the time I've been this, I don't think I've done anything worth talking about.
hmm.
Just, that, oh, I did this, that, and the other. Like, oh, you should see this PowerPoint presentation I've done. It was amazing. It had some really good builds. It just, there's no stories, right?
Yeah,
So, and then out of the blue, I mentioned I went to a military boarding school.
yeah,
At that boarding school, I mentioned that like there's a lot of Pazbrats there, but also kind of wealthy people. And one of the lads who joined the school was a Lebanese fella called Khalid. So he was around about the second or third Muslim into the school, and I was with the bad lads, and we welcomed him into our society as being a bad lad. So we cut around with Khalid. Um, it was towards the end of 2008. I was working in an office outside of Leeds, and I got a Facebook friend request from him, and he was like, "Hey, how you doing? Do you fancy coming over to Dubai for a reunion? Like, we'll get the lads together." Why am I saying it like that? Get the lads together. Um, so I was like, "Yeah, yeah, cool." So we went over. So Khalid's he's Lebanese, but he spent most of his childhood in Sierra Leone, from a wealthy family. Um, and yeah, he flew us all over. Like me and three other lads flew over to Dubai. Hadn't seen each other since leaving school. Um, yeah, he's rich, and he had a nice big boat. We was over there for a week, all expenses paid, like get together reunion type thing. And it was from that point there that life for me became a bit more interesting, I think. So his primary work in Dubai was like selling diesel generators, and this was now like 2008 was during the time of like Iraq and Afghan was
Yeah.
like kind of kicking off, and they all of whether it was Afghan or Iraq, mostly Iraq, they needed like camps and base supplies, and so he provided them with diesel generators, and a diesel generator can get quite expensive. So him and his brother was like proper Kenko. Kenko, by the way, means rich.
Yeah.
Um, so he said like, look, do you want to come and work for me? And I was like, you know, just cutting around in the flipping Aston Martin. Like, yeah, why not? I think I had a Fiat Punto at the time. But I knew Khaled from school. I was like, look, for me to come and work for you're getting something special. Give him a big number, and he was like, yeah, that's no problem. I was like, oh no, that was a bit. I should have gone in higher. So I was like, look, what do you want me to come and do? And he said that he's going to set up a business in Sudan, which he'll ship his generators down into Sudan, and also do sort of like base camp supplies for the NGOs that are working down there, a whole load of NGOs. And we're like, yeah. I said, like, yeah, I do. I want to do it, but listen, you can't mess me around here. That's me going back to the UK, quitting my job, and then leaving my wife to come and work for you in the Middle East and then in Africa. So then I trusted your brother, which is when I started to distrust him. So it was a high gamble. It was like to go and do that. And so me and my friend Mike, we decided to say yes to it. But my other mate Smiley said, "Why do you think they call him Smiley, Frank?"
So he never smiles.
Correct.
Yeah.
So he decided not to. Smiley had a really good job. All three of us were pad brats, by the way.
Yeah.
But Smiley had a really good job in Germany. He's like half German, half English. So he had a really good, successful career in Germany. So he was like, no, I like what I do. He's quite a rock and roll type guy. So me and Mike came from Malaysia, and that guy's story is crazy. So anyway, so me and Mike ended up quitting our jobs, going back
It's a big bold move.
Oh
Really.
yeah. I haven't spoken to him in ages.
Yeah.
Well, since school. But we saw it, we saw the money, we saw the glitz, we saw the glamour, saw the generator, we went into his office, and so yeah, we ended up going back out to Dubai, and it wasn't long before the fact was more fiction than fact, and it was really just the complexities of him trying to set up his business in Sudan before we could go down there and be like the face of his business. So I spent a couple of months in Dubai sort of learning about generators because I knew nothing about them.
Yeah.
Meeting his team in Dubai, and then we kept pushing him saying that we need to go. So can we just go? And he's like, yeah, go down there. You'll meet this guy. We've got a nice compound down there. Everything he needs down there. So we flew down there. We went to Juba, South Sudan, which is the roughest place I've been to in my life. Not only is it the roughest place I've been to in my life, me and Mike stuck out like a sore thumb. So what was happening at the time? So in Sudan, there's the mainly Muslim north, and then there's the mainly Christian south.
Yeah.
And they were at war with each other, basically over oil rights. And then South Sudan they had internal conflict, because they were sort of fighting for their own independence from the north, and so there was a power struggle down south. And that's when we traveled down there. We didn't deploy the civilians. They were right bang in the middle of like a really, really dodgy time.
Yeah, getting a bit thirsty.
Yeah, it was really scary. Most scared I've been in my life. I was unarmed.
What security did you have?
If we found a big stone on the floor, we could probably throw that at somebody. No. Yeah, it was really, it genuinely the most scared I've been in my life. And it was scared, because there's all sorts of crazy stuff happening whilst we were down there. Mike's not from a military background. I was just a little bit more savvy about how you should behave.
Yeah.
Don't turn into tourists, but Mike would get his photo out and take photos of people up close who were in poverty, and kids that were just on the street. I was like, Mike, he was like, hey, look at me. I was like, stop doing that. But Mike had other skills. He had a real good gift of the gab, and he did did really well at getting some connections in some of the UN sort of compounds and stuff like that. So he was really good at networking. I was doing more of the like the logistics and operational side of stuff. But it was becoming increasingly uncomfortable down there. We had loads of people following us and tailing us, and there's some really, really scary characters who were, just taking way too much attention, and it felt really unsafe.
I mean, you've been prime targets for kidnapping.
Yeah, because it was unusual. There's two white guys, not on a compound, not UN or anything like that. Nobody knew who we were. We didn't really trust who we were. We took tourists basically, and yeah, there was some military, like some soldiers down there, and the colonel came to us and was like, "We're watching you for a while now, and you are who you say you are. So we trust you, and if you're ever in trouble, which you will be, here's a card. You can give us a call whenever you need us." So just got too sketchy. Somebody came into the compound and like sat down and said, I want $10,000 for me now. Lifted up his shirt and he had bullet holes all over the place. And was like, I've been fighting for my country. You come down here trying to make money. I want some money. And I'm like, I haven't got any money. We haven't got any. So I had to get my then line manager, who was a Lebanese guy, to sort of wrangle him down to, we gave him like a big water bowser, that goes on the roof.
Yeah.
We gave him a water bowser and said, like, look, if we give you this, you've got to make sure that nobody else comes on the compound. You're there to protect us. And yeah, I'll protect you, brother. So it was just getting way too risky. I hope my wife doesn't hear this stuff. So it was safe as houses love. At that point now, I'm like, I can't be here full time. So I spoke to Khaled about it. I went back to Dubai with him and we mooched around some other countries just to try and rack up some other business. Went to Cameroon, just off the cuff with him, flew first class over to Cameroon, went into the jungle, found some American Special Forces guys building a compound, and we were like, done some gear. I was like, Khaled, how did you know they were there? And he was like, well, just some guys told me. So they're really, really peculiar. And I said to him, like, look,
different world, yeah.
Yeah, man, it was unreal. I was like, look, I don't feel particularly safe in Juba. How can we address that situation? So it's kind of money that year. We said, well, I'll buy you a house in Uganda, and you can fly in and out as much as you want. So it's about an hour's flight. So me and Mike moved into a house in Entebbe. Kampala, just outside Kampala. You know not much about Uganda? Do you know Idi Amin and all
Yeah,
that?
yeah.
But actually, Uganda is one of Africa's success stories. They're doing all right
Yeah.
for themselves. They've got they were doing all right, and so it felt much safer.
It's a
The
kind of
temperature and
stable
the
country,
climate
yeah.
much safer. And then if we ever needed to go back and said, it's just an hour's flight away. It took a lot of pressure off being there. But so this is 2008, and 2009, if you remember, that was around about the time of the financial crisis.
Yeah.
And whilst it hit the UK and Europe and America badly, it took its time to reach Dubai. And when it did hit Dubai, famously, all the Westerners just upped and left all their houses unpaid, left all their cars unpaid.
Yeah, left all the cars on the streets, yeah.
So the impact's still felt today.
I thought the police are driving around in Lamborghinis.
I mean, they still do that.
Yeah.
They've got loads of money, haven't they? So Khaled's business started to take a hit. He had some pretty dodgy business practices as well of not paying people and like taking like deposits. Some really shady stuff going on. And I'm like, I can see this affecting my ability to be here. So I was like, I need to have a get out clause. And during that time, it's like Iraq and specifically Afghan was well underway. And I was like, I need to go somewhere safer. It's really dodgy here, so I was looking for work in Afghanistan.
Must be bad. It must be bad.
Yeah, it's really bad, isn't it? If you actually want to go to a war zone to get away. So yeah. I knew with living in Dubai at that time, I say living there, I was like living with him and stuff like that. I hadn't moved there. I knew that there was a lot of contractors out there who would use a lot of the hotels in Dubai to fly their staff in and out, sort of layovers and stuff. And so I was like, what I need to do is go and find those hotels and just sit in the bar and just do some networking. And before long, this is where coincidence is incredible. There was a big food company out there. People who know will know it's called Supreme, and they used to supply the British Army with food, the deflats and all that. So I found their hotel, and I went to that hotel and sat in the bar. And before long, I noticed somebody was staring at me, and I look quite similar to my dad. And if somebody's staring at me, it's one or two reasons. They might recognise it, or they just want to beat me up. So he came up to the bar and just started talking. He was like, "Oh, you just look like somebody." And I chanced it and said, "Oh, you're in the army?" He said, "Yeah, yeah." I said, "Well, what are you in?" So he's the Master Chef at 49 Regiment. I can't remember his name, Dave something or other. And I was like, "Oh, yeah, my dad was the RSM at 49 Regiment." He says, "Really?" So I was his Master Chef. So he was the HR manager for Supreme. Just happened to be flying back to the country the following day. I told him that I'm looking for work. He said, "No problem whatsoever. I can get there. I'll give you a call. Sort it out. No worries." So the next day, I got a text from him. And he says, like, "You want to have a look at this company that flies all the cities in?" So what people might not know is for every one soldier, there's 3 cities in Afghan.
All right.
Yeah, from potato peelers all the way up to trainers.
Yeah.
So most of those fly in from Dubai into the main bases on a chartered flight, and then from the main bases out to the FOBs on like smaller aircraft, Beats 1900. So he was checking in for his flight and said they're called diplomatic flight services. I've said that first because that's short to DFS. And they're like, "Oh, you sell carpets in Afghanistan." So yeah, whatever. Is it DFS? Oh, sorry. So yeah, he sent me a text. Like, "Good to meet you last night. By the way, these guys look busy. Have a look." And so I went online, and they're based in Dubai. I was in Dubai. Sent the CV off, tailored it a little bit. Literally within 15 minutes, get a phone call. "Are you in Dubai? Yeah. Do you want to come and talk about this job?" So yeah, yeah. So it was like as a passenger flight manager for that charter flight, and they were like, "Look, we got a manager's job in Kandahar. Do you wanna go?" I was like, "Yeah, yeah, yeah, sure." Like, so I knew nothing about
I was going to
airplanes.
say, you rocked up in Sudan knowing nothing about diesel generators, and you go for a job like
Yeah,
as a
airplanes.
flight controller.
Yeah. So they said, "Look, the country manager is just going on leave. He'll be here in an hour. Will you hang around to meet him?" I said, "Yeah, yeah, sure." So when the country manager walked in, I was like, "I know him." And he looked at me and he came and he says, "You Mark Kerr?" So yeah, yeah. He said, "Were you in Bosnia around about 95?" I said, "Yeah, I was in your RAMI section, mate." And I was like, "I thought I recognised you." He said, "Do you want this job?" "Yeah, yeah." So when can you start? I said, "Look, I've been out here for a bit. I wouldn't mind going home for 2 weeks and I'll come back and start in 2 weeks." "Yeah, yeah, sure." So then I flew into Afghanistan as the passenger services manager for DFS Middle East, which was flying in all these cities, having never worked on the flight line, turning aircraft around on a very busy flight line.
Yeah.
Tell you how much I didn't know about airplanes. If you walk up to an airplane on a mobile phone, the captain of that plane will tell you to get off the fucking mobile phone. I'm like, what? So I had to learn it really, really quick, and it was quite a straightforward operation because there was two sides of it, passenger and cargo.
Yeah.
My job really as the manager was to just try and negotiate like a check-in in a bombed-out building of these cities going off on leave and coming in back off leave at the same time, on a busy like flight line. So it was really, the army or the military took priority,
Yeah.
getting people on aircraft and shooting them off, and then we would like try and snake in to get people off on leave. That was a really, really good job, really, really good team, really well known around Kandahar because we were in bright orange. You know,
You'd have been everyone's friend as well.
yeah, yeah. So it was mates, favours and favours
Yeah.
kind of stuff. And so as the manager, I'd stand back and there was a lot of like loggies and ops people who were, they're the ones who would take the lads down, or whoever it was, down to the flight line to see them off, new people coming in, collect them and all that sort of. So I got to know a load of different people, and with contracting, there's like 3 basic questions: is what's the pay, what's the rotation, do I get paid on leave? And so I met loads of different people and forged really good relationships and friendships with them, and I was on the constant lookout for what can I do next. And I had several decent offers, but didn't want to risk making a job. Like one of them was to work with the Canadian embassy, but I was like, no, because whilst you've got a real good friendship with this person, once you go through the paperwork, they might get to a point where they go, yeah, but he's not Canadian, and
Yeah.
if you quit your job. So I was like stuck onto it and stuck onto it, and there was these lads who kind of like helped them out a lot. Um, Loggies, ops guys, or whatever. Never knew who they were. They were armed Brits, but some with Irish accents. And like there were some people I wouldn't ask what they do, and these were some of them. But I used to do a lot for them. You know, oh, we've got some guys coming from this fault who really need to go out and leave. You know, they'll do 3 month rotations. Like, can you hold the aircraft? I'm like, I can hold an aircraft, but like, we can speed up the check-in, give their names, give their details, whatever. Like, we can do the best we can. And I did that quite a few times for them. I got to know a couple of them really, really well. So one of them came into our office with another guy who I hadn't seen before, and was like, the other guy was like, oh, he needs a ticket home. We're like, yeah, sure, got him the ticket, and he wasn't really talking to me, and I knew him, and I was like, oh, it's about time you went over for some leave. You've been here for ages, didn't you? And didn't really say anything, and they disappeared, and he went and changed the flight around, and then when we came back, this guy who was with him came in on his own. It was like real Northern Irish accent. What's your name, Mark? Like, yeah. Do you want a job? I was like, can we step outside? I was like, yeah. It's like, who are you? And he told us a little about what they do. So I'm going to say stuff now, which is like it's not secret stuff or anything. It's not me being a Walt or anything like that. It's just like I'll just say a little about who they are and what they do for no other reason that I don't want to like blow me in trumpet or something. I sound even saying out loud this stuff. I feel a bit of a dick saying it, but so he told me who they were. It's public knowledge. New Century. They were called New Century. They were a specialist tuning like training team.
Yeah, I've heard of them.
Yeah. And the boss of that company was Tim Collins.
I've listened to a podcast, from the guys that told you about why I
Yeah.
started doing this, and they've done one with
Mhm.
about them,
Oh,
and
have
it's
they?
yeah,
Oh, I'll have to track that down
it's
because
quite interesting.
so yeah, Tim Collins, he was CEO of First Irish Rangers. He did the famous Eve of the Battle speech, and these guys were on what was a like incredible, um, like training project. And I was like, look, I'm not from that background. He was like, you don't need to be because it's not as a trainer. And they were like, did you ever do a Northern Ireland tour? And I was like, yeah. He said, well, that's the minimum you need to work and support the project. You're not going to deliver the training. So
Yeah,
I was like, yeah, man, this is spot on. So like I went and met the regional manager for Kandahar. He's like an ex-colonel in the Marines. Really nice guy. And then I very nearly fucked it up. I got the job offer, and I was like, actually, this is less money than what I'm on. And one of the other lads said, "Oh, did you get the offer?" I was like, "Yeah, yeah." But I was like, "Money's not great." He said, that's sterling because I was getting paid in US dollars, and I was like, "Oh, Jesus, really?" Yeah. He said, "Did you see you get paid on leave?" I was like, "Oh no, I didn't read that bit." He said, "Yeah, yeah, we get paid on leave." So the company I was working with, we didn't.
yeah.
And he said, "Oh, I didn't read that." And he was like, "Did you read a bit about the bonus?" I was like, "Oh, didn't read that." I said, "Did you fucking read any of it?" I was like, "I better go flick through it." And yeah, it was much better. So I accepted the job, and I said to the DFS, like, look, I've had this excellent offer, great opportunity. Do you mind if I leave tomorrow? I need to go back to the UK, I need a break, and then I need to do some onboarding training with these people. And they're like, oh, no, 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 no. They're like, we really need you there. I was like, when I go on leave, does somebody cover me? They're like, yeah. I said, well, give them a call, they can cover me. And I booked myself onto the flight the next day, and I went home before doing onboarding training. So with that was on an American contract. Onboarding training meant I had to fly over to America, and with all the like American contractors, they all have to do like pre-deployment training, which is it's like a week, maybe 10 days. You do all the obvious stuff, you learn about the country, the law, first aid, all that sort of stuff. And if you were armed, you had to do your qualification because they were armed, but to like get the weapons qual.
Yeah.
For the weapons qual, I had to come back to the UK, and I went to Northern Ireland, and I went to some place there to do my weapons qualification. Um, That was the first time I went back to Northern Ireland, mate. Fucking hell.
Yeah, that's all. That's new to me. I didn't know that. I didn't even know you could do weapons qualifications in the UK. Only on like up to 2-2 or
So you could with those guys.
right.
So the reason why I did it in Northern Ireland was so that by the time I then went to the country, my arming license was ready for when I sort of deployed with them, so you could get your weapon straight away rather than getting there. So yeah, when I first went back to Northern Ireland, it was really, really weird. You know,
Very different.
yeah, man. I was really aware of that. I felt like I was hard targeting around the airport. And then some guy was just there with my name, and I was like, massive antitrust. And yeah, he said, "Look, I'm going to take you somewhere now. We're going to go and do a shoot." He took me to a place to go and do a shoot. Did really well on the shoot. That's the first time I shot him as well. Um, and then, yeah, then buggered off to Kandahar. Well, went back to Kandahar. So I worked with that company. It was New Century. I think it's 6 years in total. And, I started off in Kandahar. So the job there was really like loggy operations, fell it sort of developed over time. You know, it's about like helping, supplying, and providing the mentors of what they needed in some of the fobs that they were working out of. And that's all the way from then like new starters arriving in the country for the first time, and kit and equipment, paperwork, documentation to actually get to the fobs. You know, all of that kind of supporting stuff for the in order for that, and sometimes training. You know, we used to use VSAT, not VSAT, sort of like an internet terminal type thing. All of that sort of stuff, which on the military side it's quite straightforward. Most, if not all, of those lads had served, hence the military side, more than not. But then on the other side, like the policing side, not many of them are deployed to hostile environments, and so we're kind of new to it. In addition to that, all of them had interpreters, but our interpreters are slightly different in that they had to be UK passport holders and they had to have like security clearance at a high level. And most of them were like the sons from the Russian-Afghan war, so they'd never been to Afghan. They were all born in the UK, but Afghan by recruit. So that some of them coming back to going to Afghan was like quite difficult for them. You know, so yeah, it kind of ramped up from when I first started. We went, I can't remember the numbers, but you know, we had quite a big operation in Kandahar, Leatherneck, Bagram, and in Kabul. And Kabul was where we had our HQ element, which it was called the HQ element. It's all military stuff in it. And then just like what happened with the, you know, sort of downsizing of operations in Afghan, our programs went through different iterations of the program, and that included sort of downsizing where you go from training to train the trainer to shit, what else can we do to keep going as a contract? And I ended up moving from Kandahar, went over to Leatherneck, which was attached to Bastion. We're like prime, by that stage, we're like prime US contractor. Yeah, went over to Leatherneck. It was really good then because I was working directly with the US Marines in support of them. And then just then told that I was going to go to Kabul. I never wanted to go to Kabul. And I went up there in some strange circumstances that a lad up there whose job I took, he was sacked whilst he was on leave. And they were like, "Oh, you're going to move up there." And so I went up there with a little bit of attitude, and the person that I met, so the regional manager and our HQ was in the same place, and so the regional manager and country manager were all stepping on each other's toes. So I was working in support of the regional manager on some crappy little base as well. That was really suffocating, and I was a bit of a dick, to be honest, with this regional manager. He was like a former colonel in the SVS. And I went from being a dick, I was a dick, to getting on really well. He was a bit of a Jew, but he turned out to be a real good guy. So whilst I was there, I was getting a bit of burnout from all this time in some weird countries, and I decided I was going to leave. And I spoke to this guy. He said, "What are you going to do?" I said, "I don't know. I don't know what I'm going to do." But he said, "Why didn't you become an outdoor instructor?" I said, "Because I don't know what one is." So he said, like, "Have you done your mountain leaders?" I said, "No, but I did unit expedition leaders when in the army." He said, "Well, go to Placid Run, which is National Mountain Training Centre in North Wales. The Snowdonia. or whatever it's called in Welsh. Sorry, Taff, if you're there, I don't mean to offend you. Um, and so I went and did, yeah, I quit my job. I went to do a mountain leaders training. It's a week mountain leader training in Snowdonia. By which I halfway through it, I was like, I'm going to come back and do the fast track outdoor instructor program. It's a 4-month residential course where you learn to be like a mountain leader, paddle sports leader, climbing instructor. It was awesome, and it came like for somebody who wanted sort of decompression.
Yeah.
It was perfect, you know. So it's fun. There was a couple of like squaddies on there, ex-squaddies on there. One of them was a really good climber. Buddied up with him. He was a medic in Afghan. Really good course. So it teaches you all this stuff, but it doesn't teach you how to get work. I didn't know anything about that sort of stuff. Finished the course. I only really came away with mountain leaders because realistically, I didn't go in there as a paddler, and I certainly wasn't a climber. I became an all right climber, but and at the end of the course, I didn't know what to do, and then I got a phone call from the company, and it was what I consider as a one-time phone call.
Yeah.
Do you want to come back? And you got to answer that question there and then. And I was like, yeah. A lad had reached out, said you might be getting a call. And I was like, yeah, I'll go back. Which was like the cheap way out, really. Instead of trying to figure out about the outdoor industry, I was like, no, I'll go back to Afghanistan.
Yeah, well, you've got to go where the money is in the end.
Yeah. Well, I had a bit in the bank. So I went back to Kandahar, which was a really strange occurrence. So I went there during the height of busyness.
Yeah.
When I went back there, it was like a ghost town, man. It was incredible, like just how many people had left that place. I was down there. My sort of reason for going back was for me to do an audit of the company. We had to comply with like US regulations. So that audit really sort of like marking time until somebody left and I was going to take his job, his place, his job. Yeah, so that happened, and then I went back up to Kabul, by which time the company had moved into a hotel off the base. And it was a different way of working. It was quite a big hotel. We got it on the cheap because it had been attacked whilst it was getting built. So the people in the council saw an opportunity. Can we get that cheap? Yeah, it's just been blown up. So we moved in. And they'd moved in before I got there. So we lived in this hotel I was up there for about 2 years.
What was the security like?
Well, we were it.
Yeah,
but we did have some Afghan securities on the main gate.
So did you feel
we were it.
under threat, or
Yeah. We were it.
we went using targets as well?
Yeah. But you know, I was like, there's going to be an attack at some point, and I had some really bad sleepless nights there, and I'm flipping. You just, you know, the longer you're there, we're a massive target, you know. But we weren't attacked in the time that we were there. The program came to an end around about 2016. Me and 5 other people are last off the ground. It sounds really cool, doesn't it? The last to pack up a job and leave. And literally within 2 weeks, Taliban attacked that hotel, and there's no one in it. We'd left. So some bad timing, but no, good timing now. So yeah, 2016. That project came to an end, and I was back in the UK. Like, what am I going to do? During that whole time, I knew that something was going wrong in my head. Something wasn't quite right. Couldn't put my finger on it. I'd had PTSD way back in the day, but this thing felt different. I couldn't put my finger on I just didn't know what it was. It was different feeling. I was getting really emotional for no reason.
Yeah.
You know. So yeah, I finished.
So when you said you had PTSD before, did you get any help with that?
No, I didn't. No, I just got stuck on with it. And then
yeah, I mean, as most people do.
But then this was worse. So I ended up I took a bit of time off, and then there was this really cool charity. They're not around anymore. I think they are in America. They were called Team Rubicon, and they're a disaster response charity. So if there was ever a disaster in the UK or overseas, then they deploy and help people out. It was really good. It was set up by some ex-US Marines. And you have to do some like onboarding training with them, and they do this video at the first weekend, and they say like, for anyone in the room, just this might be a trigger, this video. I was just a bit blasé, so no, it's fine. And I've got a black dog video, and it's like watching a diagnosis of what's wrong with me. There's not just ex-soldiers on in that sort of charity. There's a lot of like ex-policemen or certain policemen as well, actually. Fire brigade, ambulance nurses and stuff. So you're around a lot of people who understand that stuff, and it was like, oh yeah, I kind of get this now. And like literally, so that was on the Sunday. I had quite a bad breakdown, but the next day I went into the doctors. I was like, I'm determined. I know for almost 2 years now, something's been boiling up to not being right, and I've just found out what it is. So I went to the doctors and said, right, this is what I've got wrong. I don't want pills, and I'm not sitting around in a circle talking about it. And he said, so what do you want to happen? Well, I don't know. It's like, that's generally the treatment. I was like, all right, I'm off. So I literally got on the train. I went into Leeds City Centre. I went to the British Legion. I was sat in the reception, kicking the carpet, and they're like, do you want some help? And I was like, yeah, could do with a bit of help. And they sort of put me in touch with combat stress, but it wasn't combat stress that I was feeling. It was something different. I didn't quite get on with the guy who was talking to me. He had no military experience. He was a civvy and real bad visions of just jumping across the desk and beating his head in, which is never a good start for therapy. But I knew this line of therapy was not going to work for me, so I left. I went back to the doctors and I was like, all right, what am I going to do? And so he put me in touch at NHS and I went into therapy, and it was really, really helpful. Very quickly learned how to get a hold of it. Now still have all of those issues and stuff. But one thing that was really good, and I'll tell you the quick ways. So one of the guys who was on that induction weekend, the charity, he was a policeman, and he had gone through some issues as a policeman.
Yeah.
So I went down to stay with him for a bit, and I understood the differences between like combat and military PTSD and mental health issues, and then the mental health issues that the police or the fire brigade or the nurses that they go through. And so he told me about his issues, which mirrored these new feelings, and I was like, and so the short version is like policemen. I'm no expert on this. Like they go through a shift with this peaks and troughs of adrenaline.
Yeah.
Like spike. Oh my God, we're going to a call out. What is it? Oh, it's just a cat stuck in a tree. That's that spike. So my time over in those hostile environments, it was those continuous exposure to like hostile environments and then coming home to the UK, and every time I was coming home, I was having more and more problems, and my wife was like noticing it. I just, so learning and understanding that this thing happened, it was different to, what you get from the army. Very quickly got a hold onto it, and then I had to find work. So I went back to the outdoor instructor thing, and then really lucky. Like right now, I'm an outdoor instructor, multi-activity instructor. I'm a mountain leader, paddle sports leader. Part of your coping mechanisms, because there's several different coping mechanisms that I put in place, is like outdoor therapy, right?
Yeah.
Well, that's my job.
So yeah,
it's like, so I have some other coping strategies to deal with certain issues, but a large part of it is my actual job. I'm very often in the mountains with groups, taking them around, teaching them map reading, how to walk around mountains, Paddle sports leader, I take people kayaking, and lakes, nothing whitewaters. I do a bit of workout, well, not last year, the year before, workout at Cresta, doing sea kayaking with like tourists visiting the area. Coast steering is amazing. Coast steering is absolutely brilliant. So yeah, that's part of my work, is part of my therapy. Just want to correct that. I don't consider it as therapy much anymore.
So what is it about that part that helps? So I mean, I could say,
Yeah,
is it all the fresh air? Is it the,
so
is it
it's really, so anyone who has those sort of issues will know that being in a crowded room is a nightmare.
Yeah.
Right. So it's just like for like. It's almost like, so the outdoor therapy. So in my case, it's not my therapy. It's just helps me. Is stepping out of a crowded room. If my head, if my surroundings is what you consider it as a crowded room, my job is stepping out of a crowded room. You remember back in the day, if you go in a pub, oh, this pub just haven't got a great feeling to it.
Yeah.
So imagine that's in the head. Like the best thing to do is go to a bad pub. Okay. So it's a really simplistic way of dealing with it. I do appreciate everyone has like different ways of dealing with it if they are dealing
Yeah,
with
but
it.
I mean,
It works for
the
me.
reason I asked that is that somebody who's listening to this might be feeling the same way, and
Yeah.
you know, as we've spoke about in the before we started recording this bit again, we've all lost friends,
Mm,
through suicide,
yeah.
and sometimes like you saying there, you went to the doctor and I don't want to take pills and I don't want to sing Kumbaya and sit in a
Mm,
circle and stuff like that, and us as men from that era in the army are all fucking idiots
yeah.
who don't seek help. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah. Yeah. Mm. Long
pause,
pause.
pause for dramatic effect.
So yeah, we had to have a pause for dramatic effect there, didn't
Yeah,
we? Which is important. So yeah, I think what I was saying is that I have a really good handle on what's going on. I'm lucky that my job is uh, is the biggest fix. Unfortunately, we live in a country that's crap weather through the winter, and I'm not great through the winter and the dark months. I don't do as much work, and so that's not a great time for me. But we're at the moment we're heading towards sunnier times, and the outdoorsy stuff's really really helpful. Um, Interestingly, um, my so I'm self-employed. I work for myself, hence that's why they call it self-employed. So, um, but my main contract is working with the Army Foundation College in Harrogate, and I work with junior soldiers. I take them out doing like navigation training, paddle sports, um, and it's I would never have seen myself do that. You know, I would have
So how did you
absolutely.
get that job? How did you get that specific
So
one?
it's nearby. I used to live down that way. I used to live just outside Leeds, and this was when I was as an instructor, just starting the journey.
Yeah.
I saw an advert online for a first aid instructor, and it was at the Army Foundation College, and I was like, well, it's just nighttime work, evening work, and I got in touch and said, look, I've done a lot of first aid training, but I'm not a qualified first aid instructor. I said, so I can work in support of whoever's delivering. And the guy was like, yeah, that's perfect. That's what we're looking for. It's like 2 nights a week for a couple of hours. And then when I met this guy, he's like, oh, you're an outdoor instructor. Why don't you work in our other department? And I said, what department is that? And so back then it was called Leadership Initiative Training, what we call adventure training. So I mean, you just have to polish that to, don't they?
Yeah.
So I was like, yeah, of course I'd love to do that. And he just put me in touch with him, and then I moved over and I actually packed up the nighttime work. I've been doing that for around about 5 years now. It works out round about a week, a month, ramps up sort of this time of year. Yeah, so junior leaders or junior soldiers, your standard training of which they come to our department about 4 times. One of them's do a high ropes course about confidence. So do a high ropes course, navigation week. It's only 4 days a week. So do map reading, and then we'll take them over to Lakes for Wild Camp if the weather's good. And then they'll come back again doing multi-activity week where they can either do like climbing, caving, um, or in my case, I take them out doing kayaking. Um, in the winter, they know about it in the winter, they're freezing, and I tip them upside down as well to make sure they get out cold out of the boat. I'll watch them.
Yeah.
I don't. I'm not getting cold water.
I hold their head underwater.
So that's most of my work is through that, and I do that deliberately because I kind of like it.
Is it good to be back in like a standard military environment as
No,
well?
no, not at all. Um, it's different now. It resonates. So the army hasn't changed. It resonates. There are some challenges with regards to sort of like decision making and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But I don't particularly care for that anymore. It's like not my business. We do work alongside. We work with PTIs and that, which I just love. Just, I'm not good enough to be a PTI, but what I care about is I've got to get in a group, meet them, take them out, then to enjoy their day, do a bit of learning, and then go back, and that's it. The admin sort of stuff around that can be a bit complicated, and the logistics and all that sort of stuff, but it's not our business to care too much about it, So, um, but yeah, it's an environment I'm used to. On the camp, there's a big AS90 there, and there's an F870 there, and it's like it's an environment I'm used to. But I did have a go as well. I decided not to do it. Is phase two training when they go to Kyak, the infantry, they'll go to Holton and they can do adventure training over there. Quite a few of the lads who I work with work over there and take phase two soldiers through their adventure training there. But I did about a week there, and it was just too much army stuff.
Yeah.
And also they put me with the Paras and some Gurkhas, and I can't keep up with them. So I was like, I can't keep up with these fellas. No matter if I try and get them to find a hard spot on the map. So yeah, it is good. I do enjoy that kind of work. The junior soldiers that we get now, it's a classic, and we're not in my day. But
But it wasn't.
no, it wasn't. No, yeah, it's good. And then last year, I mentioned earlier to you, I took it wasn't a break, like an opportunity came up. I went over to Saudi Arabia for most of last year on an incredible project that I got to know about from a guy I was working with. Saudi Arabia's got quite a bad reputation at the moment. They're trying to make improvements on that by investing all sorts of money in all sorts of different projects. So I was working on behalf of a charity called Panthera, and they have a captive rebreeding program in Saudi Arabia for the Arabian leopard, and they want to
The what?
Captive rebreeding program.
No, the Arabian what?
The Arabian leopard.
I didn't even know there was such a thing.
Yeah, because it's on the endangered species list.
I honestly didn't know there was.
Yeah. So yeah, finding a man. So yeah, they want to reintroduce that into the wild there, and so I was asked to go over and train some of their conservation rangers. So I knew nothing about diesel generators. I knew nothing about airplanes. I knew nothing about conservation, but I just kind of had an idea about patrolling, and I did a bit of reading and led that project, and it was amazing. It was in an amazing place as well, a place called Alula, sort of northwest of the country. And it was, if you imagine like Ambleside in the Lake District, a real small part of the country. The backdrop is incredible. I've said before, I prefer deserts. I spent a lot of time in deserts than I do jungles. That particular desert environment was just amazing. So yeah, it was an incredible experience. It was really stressful. It was quite a high pressure project. Finished in October of last year, and then just taking a bit of time now to get back into things, going back to instructing. I'm back at the college instructing there. Oh yeah, and then this year, another weird direction of work. Chanced an application to become a patrol officer on a speedboat. So I'm gonna start doing some patrols somewhere on the northeast coast, during the sort of summer and warmer hours. Make sure people aren't being stupid in the sea.
Well, like for the lifeguard or
No, it's for a council. So it's Port Sunderland. It's just it's that first line of defence type thing. I think it was really just to encourage people to stay away from big ships that are really kind of close to the seaside.
Yeah.
So I'm going to do that. Just not last week, the week before, I went and got my speedboat license, which is good fun.
I've just got Miami Vice theme going through my head now.
Well, it was in Humber Estuary and it's freezing cold.
So it's not like no, I can just see it skimming across the top of the water.
Oh yeah, we go like really fast. They call it up on a plane, bombing around on a boat. I'm pretty sure patrolling speed's going to be like 2 knots. I'm going to be like itching to open her up a bit. So yeah, I'm hoping to take just like a slow year this year, just to get back into being back from over there and try and enjoy myself. I mean, I do all sorts like mountain biking, paddle sports, stand-up paddleboarding, all that kind of stuff, which is a great escape, isn't it? So yeah, that's why I wanted a two-parter, just to know that what did you do since you left the army? I had quite a unusual background, isn't it?
Yes, it has been.
Yeah.
It's been really interesting as well.
Mm.
I mean, I could do a two-parter on what I... No, I couldn't. I left the army, worked in IT, still work in IT. There, that's mine.
That's all
So,
right.
yeah, you know what I mean? It's
That's all right, isn't it?
yeah.
I was lucky, man. If I had have gone to
I
that
don't think
school
you've
and
been
met
lucky.
that,
I think you've made your own luck.
yeah, yeah, that
If you haven't took on each one of these things that you've
opportunities,
done,
yeah,
you've jumped
yeah.
into it feet first.
7 years mostly as well. I get 7 year itch, and I'm round about the 7 year itch now of instructing. I'm like, oh, I wonder if I can do something
Do
else.
you think you'd go back to contracting?
Yeah,
Obviously.
but not Ukraine. There,
Mm.
a couple of my mates are there, and it's like,
Yeah.
serious, isn't it?
Well, I don't know. I mean,
Actually, there's something I've got my eye on for maybe next year as part of why I want to get a speedboat license. I mean, that's why I say it, speedboat license. Um, is that, yeah, there's a couple of charities that work in and around Africa. And they patrol certain sections of Africa around like, oh, that looks like fun. So I've got my eye on that, but getting on a bit now, Frankie.
yeah, they're not spring chickens anymore. Like,
Yeah.
you know.
All right. So look, yeah, that's pretty much me, mate. Look, I do appreciate you listening to those bits that I hadn't planned to talk about.
Yeah.
When we first spoke, you said you will find that you might think you're going to talk about something, but you end up talking about something else, which is true. Um,
As much as I keep saying this to people, that I'm finding more and more that when I do these things, people open up, and it's good, even if you don't mean to open up.
mm,
As you know, going through your own type, your own forced therapy that you forced on
mm,
yourself and stuff like that. I've found that some people talking to me, it's almost like sitting in therapy, and if they're
yeah,
saying things they want to get out, and it helps them. And I've spoken with people after we finished recording, and a week later, how are you doing? Are you all right? And they say, yeah, it was good to get it out. I mean,
mm,
some of the deeper ones, they'll have already been out and been listened to uh, by the time this one comes out. But you won't have heard them. There's some of them that I found quite hard to record.
yeah. I
Like
see this.
like we did just that minute ago. That dramatic pause. I don't know where that comes from. I just fucking.
Uh,
It just creeps up on you sometimes, doesn't it?
But like what I will say then is, so I like the junior soldiers. They know I'm a veteran. That like some of them ask about that stuff, and only some of them I'll share it with.
Yeah.
The ones who I think actually might benefit, because it's a fine line of like telling them. And all I do is I make quite an interesting. It's not interesting. I make a comparison to the condition you had, the condition I had, which is our legs.
Yeah.
Turns out me and Frankie both had compartment syndrome operated. So my problem with my legs, they started whilst I was in the army towards the end of it. Well, I got these hernias down by my ankle area. They looked weird and they were sticking out. Didn't know what they were. I ignored it. Didn't get anyone to have a look at it. I left the army. It was getting significantly worse. Sorry, I had some surgery in the army. Then when I left, it just didn't feel right. I went back to the doctor. I need more surgery. So I just make this comparison. It's really simple. I ignored a problem which escalated into a bigger problem. If I had got like my legs looked at sooner, then I might not have needed second surgery. And it's like our brains are a muscle the same as our calves. It's like we just need to sort of like look after them. It's so the simplistic way of saying it. It really is. It's a lot more complicated than that. But and then I said, like, look, you've got to imagine a professional sportsman. There's so many examples of footballers who get injured right at the start of the season. They're off for a whole season. It's really, really difficult for them to be off for that season because they just want to be playing. But they need to have that injury looked after, and it needs to get fixed before they can go back and play. So it's the same sort of approach that I am with my head. So sometimes I just need to rest it.
Yeah.
That kind of thing. I just want to like finish it off with that simplistic view, and I don't intend it to be simplistic. So yeah, I kind of make those comparisons. Like, look, it's just something that you need to get fixed or let heal.
And seek help
Yeah.
if needed.
Yeah.
Well, I'll thank you for this.
No, thank you, mate. Again, I said it in the last time. Good luck to you. I hope more people are would come and support Frankie do his podcast and tell a few stories. It's good fun, and on the other side, I like listening to them.
Yeah. And if anyone who wants to come in, you're always welcome to a coffee. He's had 3.
Yeah, and I'm not sleeping tonight, man. I'm buzzing.
Right, thanks for that then.
All
we'll
right,
end
take
it now. Anyone who's listened to this and got this far, I hope you enjoyed it. It's been an incredible story by Mark. I've thoroughly enjoyed sitting here listening to it. Right, thank you. Bye bye now.